The International Visitor Leadership Program is the U.S. Department of State's premier professional exchange program. For 70 years, the IVLP has brought emerging leaders from across the world to connect with their American counterparts on issues of global importance. From heads of state and Nobel Prize winners to small-town doctors and community activists, international visitors serve their communities and countries at all levels. The American people become citizen diplomats by opening their homes and communities to thousands of international visitors every year. By engaging directly with Americans in their offices, businesses, schools, and homes, critics and skeptics become informed friends and partners. The International Visitor Leadership Program connects people to one another and transcends political and cultural divides. Join us in building a world of greater understanding and partnership. Become a citizen diplomat.
Well, welcome back to the Green Connection. I hope you get to watch the first of the month because it's going to run all the month of September. But we've got a really interesting show, and it's on sustainability, sort of, but it also involves a lot of international interventions, and I've got some really great people, and be sure and look at the website so that you'll be able to maybe to join the San Antonio Council for International Visitors. And with me I have the Executive Director, Cecilia Cross, and the current president is Betsy Cameron. And we're in a studio, incidentally, that Betsy worked for the city, and this building and this studio space was a former office. So things have really changed, and I don't know whether sustainability is getting better or worse in our city, but there's certainly a lot of building going on. And San Antonio has certainly earned a reputation for a truly friendly international city. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You bring in, okay, Cecilia, give us a little background on what the council does. And I always get mixed up on the name because it seems to me it should be International Visitors Council instead of Council for International Visitors.
It is a mouthful. So the San Antonio Council for International Visitors, or SACIV, 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 whichever way you want to call it. We are a nonprofit organization that facilitates short-term professional exchanges for international visitors who have primarily been selected by the State Department to take part in an initiative that's about 77 years old called the International Visitor Leadership Program, or IVLP. And these visitors come to the States and meet with their professional counterparts on a variety of topics. They spend about 3 weeks in the U.S. and up to a week in San Antonio. And it's really all about public diplomacy, about how can we share our values and ideals with the rest of the world, especially to countries and citizens who may not know much about the States, and they go home and turn and share that with their community and espouses a more positive view of the U.S. And we do anywhere up to 4 programs a month, so we stay pretty busy.
About how many visitors do you get?
Hundreds a year, so at least a couple hundred, I would say. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I believe last year we had 240
yeah, that's right.
visitors from more than 80 countries.
That's right.
So.
And Betsy, as the president, you have got a strong background in international living and support. So you were born where?
I was born in Panama, born and raised in Panama, and then was able to come to the U.S. to go to college.
Was your dad in the service?
No, they're both my mother and my dad from Panama, and so I was raised. But I had the opportunity to go to American schools in Panama, and from there went to the U.S. universities. However, when I finished, I graduated, then I went back to Panama and worked for the Panama Canal.
Oh.
So that was a wonderful experience.
And so then you came to San Antonio?
Then I came to San Antonio after I got married, and actually moved to San Antonio and started working here. I worked for the city of San Antonio until I retired a few years ago.
Like I told you before, you're too young to retire. You have so much to offer, you need to be working somewhere.
Yeah.
We've got her offering.
So as president, what do you do with?
Well, as president or chairman of the board, as a nonprofit organization, there is a board, and so we are 14 members, 4 board members, and so our role is to kind of oversee the functioning of the organization, and also, of course, volunteer and help out with efforts of the organization, such as providing home hospitality for those visitors that come. We call it home hospitality, but it's actually more of a dinner hospitality, where we get to invite these visitors to come to our homes for dinner and basically share really a wonderful time in sharing all kinds of areas of their personal lives, from, of course, their work, their jobs, their professions, as well as time with about their families and all kinds of their beliefs in all areas, really. So it's really a very unique opportunity to spend time with these visitors that come from all over the world, and just an evening of sharing. And
Well,
it's
as a host, I love hosting them. What's funny is, you know, because of the countries they come from, their diet is limited. So I have this one set menu. I hope the same people don't come twice because they'll get the same food. But it makes such a difference, I think, to come into a home and see how Americans live. And I know that for a long time I kept Mexican students who were here on scholarship to UNAM in Hemisphere Park. And when they first came, they were very leery of Americans, even as close as they are. And you know, after a couple of months, well, they were not with us that long, but after my very first student that we had 20 years ago still keeps in touch, and one of them called me on Mother's Day, and it changed their whole opinion. So I know what this does to the international visitor. They come with particularly now the country's in sort of a strange atmosphere, and they really don't know what to think about the people that are here. And they go through this program, and so not only, and we'll talk about the programs that Cecilia sets up, not only they get to know something about the building or the commercial life of the country, but also the home life and the people. And I think if we and they go home and they spread the word, and many of the visitors, the ones that spoke English, they're now friends on Facebook, and I get to know what they're doing, and it's a wonderful opportunity. And when we're talking about opportunity, let's get the website for the organization in case they want to be members or want more information.
Sure, it's www.sacivtx.org. It just allows the community opportunities to meet international visitors, whether that's through providing dinner hospitality, opening up their homes for the visitors, and allowing them to meet your kind of average everyday American. We also do a lot of events, dinners, mixers, socials, in which we invite our members to come and kind of mingle and meet our visitors in an informal setting. There's also going to be opportunities, or there are opportunities, to escort visitors to some of their professional appointments, to kind of act as like a kind of a guide or a host during their time here in San Antonio. So there's numerous ways to get involved. And
who are some of the sponsors, and how do you set up programs? And we'll get into the sustainable program that
Sure.
was pretty recent. It wasn't too far. What was it, in May?
Yes, that's correct.
And that was one that's why we're the Green Connection. We have to stay sustainable. There's so many other different areas that they cover. And I think these people go home with an idea, and they influence their friends. And some of their countries really must be difficult to live in. But the visitors that I have had, keep in touch, and they're doing fine. So, what are some of the programs and what are some of the events that you have? And as a board member and as a president, do you approve these before they come in, or how does that work?
Well, actually, Cecilia, as the executive director, actually puts in proposals for these different groups that come. We're part of a network, a Global Ties network, and so we're one of about 90 throughout the country. And so the State Department, through other organizations, they put out the different groups that are scheduled to come to the U.S. And so we basically compete with other other cities.
Oh, it's a competitive process.
In a way it is, because we have to show that we have something to share with the group that's coming in. So Cecilia actually puts in a proposal to say, hey, if they come to San Antonio, they can visit these different entities, the different resources as we call them, and then they'll be in touch with Cecilia. She's in touch with folks in Washington, D.C. About what we have to offer as a city and what benefits there will be for these visitors to come to San Antonio. So we're actually selling San Antonio in a way. And so then when they determine, okay, this is a good match for them to come to San Antonio, then Cecilia will then set up all those professional meetings. And so that's a lot of work and entails a lot of
detail. I'm amazed at some of the
yes,
programming that because you have to have contacts everywhere because you're
all
having
over
to
the city,
meet some of the needs of these people, and they're very diversified.
And the topics are just very diverse, from musicians to the music field to the sustainability to governance and to
and you had
antiquity. So it's just a really a varied
and a problem that
topics.
I didn't even think about is trafficking and problems
Security
of that sort. And I didn't realize that was a problem, and that San Antonio had the sources to discuss and to
Yes.
let them know. And also, San Antonio has earned a reputation worldwide as being the friendliest city in the country.
Oh,
And
yes.
so people are always glad to come here.
I do,
Yes.
on that point, I have our visitors fill out evaluations, and one of my favorite questions is, did you have any ideas about Texas or San Antonio before you arrived, and if so, have they changed? And it's so interesting to see the responses because, you know, they're pretty generally, you know, a stereotypical, you know, cowboys, desert.
Yeah, bang, bang.
But, you know, I have never seen a negative evaluation about San Antonio. They always say two things. It's friendly and warm. And warm may be also meaning friendly,
Literally
but
and
literally
figuratively.
and figuratively warm. And they're just amazed by the hospitality that we show them and the fact that they come to a city that they think is small. They haven't heard much about it other than the Spurs, perhaps, or the Alamo. And they realize what a vast network of resources and interesting individuals and entities and organizations we host here in our city. You know, for example, we're going to be doing a group soon on cybersecurity, and we're number 2 behind Washington, D.C. in cybersecurity, where our proximity to the border really influences some of the projects that we get. And it fascinates them and makes my job so fun to be able to showcase all the really great things we have to offer in the nation's 7th largest city.
And
Well,
talking about,
and they get here, and it doesn't really look like this.
No, they're amazed what they find here. But talking about the cowboys and Indians and horseback riding, actually we had a group that was very adamant they wanted to go horseback riding. They were in Texas and they wanted to go horseback riding. So we actually were able to set that up. And there were 3 folks, 2 from South Africa, or Namibia was one country, and I forget the other, Zimbabwe, and then someone from the Dominican Republic. So the 3 of them went horseback riding, and that was one of their highlights of
Did they
their
go to
visit.
a ranch, or did
Yes,
they?
they did.
Ranch,
Yes, they
yeah.
did.
I can remember when I lived in Germany, and they'd say, I'm from Texas, and they'd say, oh, shoot 'em up, bang, bang, cowboy Indians.
Well, they got
Yeah.
their fill of that, and they were
Yeah.
thrilled, weren't they? And they
Yes,
bought
they
cowboy
sure.
hats and boots and the whole shebang.
Okay, the sustainable program, which was in May, what, first of all, where were the people from?
Sure. There was 5 or 6 of them, and this was a group, a multi-regional project. So they were from all over. We had a Romanian gentleman, a woman from Mexico, a gentleman from India, someone from Nepal. It was just a
Very
medley of
diversified.
countries. Venezuela, I believe, as well. And the topic of the program was called Resilient Cities, Urban Sustainability, and they kind of wanted to study, urban growth, maintaining a sustainable factor in urban sprawl, urban growth, green buildings. They did kind of a case study on the San Antonio River, which was interesting for them to also learn about not just the downtown portion of the Riverwalk, but also, the mission reach and the work of organizations like the San Antonio River Authority, for example. And
Well, water purification and things that would
Exactly.
pertain to their country.
exactly. And some of them were actually builders.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
And so they were really got into the nitty gritty aspects of very technical aspects of for example, building green homes that meet, and things like certain sustainability or environmental standards that have been put in place to kind of measure what you can label as, a green home or a green building.
Yeah, they visited Imagine Homes, and John Friesenheim, who I remember here from years back, he's been on our show, not recently, but he's been a few times. And that is the finest example of sustainable building. And I know there were some pictures, I don't know if they showed them yet or not, of them examining the house and how they build and the materials they use. And it's been rated as the #1 sustainable builder in the country for years. And it's really an honor that San Antonio has this type of professional people in a variety of areas that are a good example not only for this country but for the world.
Yeah, and organizations also. So in addition to Imagine Homes, they met with Build Green San Antonio, which kind of, gave them another kind of complementary perspective, and a variety of other, like the city sustainability office, I believe, was one of them, or Office of Sustainability. And
What seems to be the favorite cities for the State Department to send these people?
well, that's actually an interesting question. I wouldn't say there's necessarily a favorite city, but they do try and do it geographically dispersed, and they always start their program in Washington, D.C. They do kind of an orientation, and they'll do federal level appointments, which makes sense, of course, but they like to send them to maybe one big city and a couple smaller cities. They don't just send them all to Chicago or L.A. or Boston. They try and really kind of take into consideration different size, makeup, cultural and historical influences around cities in that decision, and just cities that, and small communities, really. We're not even just talking cities. I mean, we're talking towns, college towns even. So it's a really interesting program just because they're showcasing really the diversity of the United States. And that is one of the key factors that our visitors take away, and especially obviously in a place like San Antonio.
Is it affiliated, is the organization, not your organization, but also the program affiliated with the Institute of International Education?
They are one of our national programming agencies, is what we call them, or NPAs. So they kind of work as an intermediary between the State Department and councils for international visitors such as ours. So we do work closely with a division of IIE.
So what plans do you have? Who's coming in
Sure.
Soon.
Yeah. We have currently actually a group of Mexican police officers who are doing training at the Alamo Area Coalition for, the Alamo ACOG, Alamo Area Coalition of Governments. We just had a group of participants from Belarus who examined community building through the arts. We have a group from China examining government and society, a group from Japan later this month examining regional tourism. I mean, I could go on and on. We've got quite a few.
Iraq?
Iraq, who's studying endangered cultural heritage sites and preservation for cultural heritage sites. So
Preservation, yeah.
they'll go to the, the mission.
They can get on the Alamo committee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're all most of them. I saw their bios, and most of them are archaeologists.
They are, so they're going
So
to go
it should
to
be very
UTSA.
interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're coming in, or they're already.
No, they'll be here next week.
Yeah, that's the ones from Iraq.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what are some of the things that a viewer could attend as a non-member that are coming up this year?
Sure.
Yeah, well, we have our annual dinner. We'll be celebrating this year our 29th anniversary as an organization here in San Antonio. So on the 26th of September, we'll have an annual dinner that's it's open really to anyone who may be interested in coming. We will have our two groups of visitors that will be here, the group from Japan and the group from China. So we'll get to interact with them. So that's an opportunity to get your feet wet, I guess, and see how we function and who our visitors are and some of our members you get to meet.
And when is the Japanese coming?
Yeah, they'll be here for that event, so that's going to be the end of the month.
September?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
They're a
I want to
small
host
group
one
as
of
well.
those.
Yeah, we'll
Because
talk about that.
I've been researching my maiden name, Zenzen. And nobody has any background on it.
Interesting.
And I found that it's a Japanese word, and it means no problem.
Oh, I love that.
And so I'm trying to find the background, and maybe they can help
Yeah,
me.
sure.
Yeah.
We also have a group of educators from Ukraine coming in October, and we're still looking for actual homestay hosts for them. So if anyone has a spare bedroom and is interested in cross-cultural exchange and just meeting a cool young visitors from Ukraine, let us know, because we still are looking for hosts that can host them.
Okay, do you want to give the website again?
Sure, yeah. Visit www.sacivtx.org, and there will be more information on there on how to contact us and how to get involved.
Well, the time is gone, and I want to thank you all for watching. Tell your friends the Green Connection. We don't always just have sustainability, but we hope that you will all stay green and be happy.
The International Visitor Leadership Program is the U.S. Department of State's premier professional exchange program. For 70 years, the IVLP has brought emerging leaders from across the world to connect with their American counterparts on issues of global importance. From heads of state and Nobel Prize winners to small-town doctors and community activists, international visitors serve their communities and countries at all levels. The American people become citizen diplomats by opening their homes and communities to thousands of international visitors every year. By engaging directly with Americans in their offices, businesses, schools, and homes, critics and skeptics become informed friends and partners. The International Visitor Leadership Program connects people to one another and transcends political and cultural divides. Join us in building a world of greater understanding and partnership. Become a citizen diplomat.